everyone! Welcome to Doing Marketing Differently. I'm your host, Kathleen Celmins. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Amplified Now, a video-first content marketing platform that helps businesses and experts do their content marketing in a fraction of the time. And with me today, I have Tracy. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company?
I would love to introduce myself. Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Borreson, and I am the CEO and founder of TLB Coaching and Events, and we are all about personal branding. So we are here to help people find their personal brands, and most importantly, to use that to be themselves at work. So historically for me, I think a lot of people who have a background in corporate have kind of been in the space of I be myself at home and I go to work and I be the acceptable version of me there, and not necessarily the fully true version of me. And so my goal and our team's goal is to help get you to that point where you are owning your personal brand and then can therefore lead with it when you are at work, whether you're leading in a corporate environment or leading your own business to supreme success. So that is what I'm all about. I also run a community called Your Business Peeps, which I co-founded with my friend Tara Argo, and it is a community for you to practice showing up as your authentic self, because unfortunately we just don't have those types of places to hang out. So we made one.
That's awesome. Tell me more about personal branding. Do companies see that as a threat? I could see an early to mid-career person thinking like, I don't want to stand out too much. I don't want to like brand myself. I'm just a wheel in a cog kind of thought process. How do you address that?
Yeah. And so first of all, I am trying to break that narrative about how if we're going to join someone else's business, we're just supposed to be a wheel in a cog, because we are not a wheel in a cog. It's not a clock. We are not a gear. We are humans with emotions and feelings and other things outside of work, but also passions that could really help us drive our work. And so personal branding, a lot of people think about it from what they see externally. So when they think about a personal brand, they see somebody going live on social media. They see someone with their own company with a logo and
a blue check mark or something.
Right. Yeah. So that is what they see. And so this is what a lot of people think a personal brand is. But your personal brand is really, at the core of it, the feeling that you leave other people with when you leave a room. And those types of things are really tied into who you are as a person. What are your values? And what are those types of things? And I was very excited to speak with you today, Kathleen, in terms of doing marketing differently, because this narrative is equally important for businesses in that people are making buying decisions. Humans. Most of the people who buy your services are probably humans. And if they are, they have feelings and emotions, and you are creating an experience for them. And what do you want them to remember? What do you want them to feel? That is what a personal brand is. And every single human has one. And again, it whether or not it's actively manifesting on the external, that's kind of like the third level of personal branding, quite honestly, is that the external manifestation of your personal brand. The first two steps are you need to define, and it's actually more of a discovering who you are. And the second piece is owning that. And the owning comes from the practice, where you got to show up and be yourself. And if you're not practicing showing up and being yourself, it's just not possible for you to own it. If you're practicing another skill, you're not practicing that one.
I love that because, I have a very good friend who does branding and web design. And what she says is that your brand is already defined. And so if you don't control the narrative, then you don't get to decide how you show up or how you're remembered. And I feel like that, and one of her soapboxes that she gets on is your brand is so much more than your logos and your fonts and your colors. And for a personal brand, that's even more true, because who cares nobody even sees your handwriting, right? In a corporate environment, they don't know if you sign your eyes with hearts or whatever, because when was the last time you picked up a pen?
True. Well, and the thing is that like it is actually equally important in corporate branding. So regardless of whether you're a big business or a small business or a solopreneur or what have you, wherever you are in the business, your business values, and again, this is not necessarily the values you defined as your business values, the things that are legitimately your values, that's how you show up to do things. And there are two ways that can manifest. I show up and do the things that feel authentic for me. So I feel authentic to people. Or I say all the things people expect me to say, and then I show up a completely different way. It doesn't work in marketing. It doesn't work in employee relations. It doesn't work in growth strategy.
Personal life, like
it just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work in personal relationships. It doesn't work anywhere. And so this is why I'm such a big believer in that. Like, personal branding is for all humans, and at some point I will get it into the education system when kids are earlier or when kids are younger, so they are introduced to it earlier.
How does an intentional personal brand help you do marketing differently?
Oh, this is such a good question. So,
yes.
One, I just think that focus on intentionality is important all the time. And if you challenge yourself on an intentionality level, most people are not doing things intentionally. Even like I worked in a corporate marketing department for many, many years. You just do things, right? Like you write blog posts, you write social posts, right? Like you just write, and I'm sure you see this a lot when your clients are coming to you for a fix, Kathleen, is that they've just been like creating content to create content, right? And you're like, well, you can do that, but then like
many do.
Point, like right, and so if you take a step back and look at it from an intentionality perspective, you're really not being intentional with most of your things. You're just doing things to fill the time. It's specifically dangerous too for entrepreneurs who have left corporate and now are used to working like an 8-hour workday. But like, how much of that 8-hour workday was not productive? I would say on average, conservatively, 40% of a day was not productive, right? And so like, what if I could just work 5 hours instead? Yeah, you could, except we all are convoluted in our brains and think we have to work 8 hours to be a productive human, but you don't. That's a construct that was created by the corporate environment. Erase it from your head right now. If you're working in a corporate environment, I can't guarantee you your boss is going to have that same perspective, so just tread lightly there. But when you're looking at showing up intentionally with your personal brand, I see it every single time as values. Right? So if you look at, again, whether you're looking at corporate values or personal values, I'll use myself as an example. So my core value is authenticity, showing up authentically. And so knowing that, I can actually go into a day, into a task, and figure out, one, so I do it on two different levels. One, am I showing up authentically in this task? And I have started not doing tasks and not taking meetings where I don't think I can show up authentically. If I can't show up authentically, it's done. It goes away.
Not showing up at all. That makes sense.
No. And like maybe I can change it. It might be because I'm just like, I've got other stuff going on that day. I can't show up as myself in a coffee chat, and so I reschedule the coffee chat, right? Like it manifests in different ways. The second way is for me to, my job is to create spaces for people to feel authentic. And so that is the second one for me. How many times can I create a space for someone to feel authentic today? And I go into the day with those two things. How can I be authentic? And how can I create a space for someone else to be authentic? And it doesn't matter like how many calls I made or how many social media posts I wrote or like
how much butt time in your chair you're spending, right?
Which is actually, it's funny that you say that because I just like, my butt gets so sore just sitting in the chair. We need to stand up and move. That is healthy human movement.
I agree.
Not even exercise, just movement. Just move.
I agree.
separate conversation. But when you
but
can
all
show
related.
up looking at the activities that you do and having that intentionality of using your personal brand to choose the activities that are in line with that, you have so much power to do the things that matter to you. And when you show up and do the things that matter to you, guess what? You do them better.
So this is a really good segue then, because I feel like I could go to a thesaurus and say, like, I mean, yeah, professionalism, authenticity, punctuality, you know, like I could just pick out like, oh, those all sound good. Where does someone start when they're starting to think about what they want their personal brand, those values? Where can they find something like that?
Oh, there's two places that are good places to look. The first is anything you experience, whether it's in your life or in your work, that feels good, that feels like you're in flow, that feels exciting, that feels fun, that feels, and you can, like, each different personal brand puts different measurements on some of these things. So you might be more of a like, oh, every time I feel calm, that's where I feel like totally aligned, right? So like I'm more of a like excited, but like,
yeah, like when I'm calm, I'm like, what's the matter? What should I be doing?
What did I do? So I like to call them green emotions. So any emotion that you feel that you give yourself the green light to feel more of. When you're giving yourself the green light to feel more of it, it's because there's something about it that's aligned with who you are in your nature, not in your brain, in you, inside you. And so often when we are experiencing those things, the best case scenario is that we be in the moment, right? Like we're always trying to be in the moment, right? And so we're like, oh, I'm feeling so good. I'm just going to be in the moment. And I'm not telling you not to be in the moment, but after the fact, after you've moved on to another thing and feeling other emotions, go back to those things and look at, go a little deeper. What was it about that made me feel so aligned? It's like, oh, well, one of my other values is accountability. And I used to historically, like anytime someone promises to do a thing and doesn't do it, just like strike, right? Strike against you in my book. There are lots of other people who don't care as much about accountability as I do, or define accountability differently than I do. But every time that happens to me, it doesn't feel good. And every time someone does what they say they're going to do, check mark. You went up a level in my book. And so every time, just using accountability as an example in this scenario, every time someone does that, I feel good. I feel rewarded. I feel happy, right? And so green emotion. Every time someone doesn't do that, I feel angry or frustrated, and like just red emotions, right? Like not emotions everybody's super excited about feeling. Stop, explore. And so those are two, red emotions and green emotions are really great windows into your personal brand versus like, because even I have done those exercises. I'm sure a lot of people have, where they just like give you a whole long list of values, and they're like, "Here's all."
And they're like, "Pick one," and you're like, "What?"
And you can't even possibly create a document with all possible values on it. So it's just like
right.
It doesn't even have all of your options. And even I do an exercise where about feeling. So I say words, and then people write down the words that they feel attached to versus like me, which I think is a little bit better, but still not very good. It's not as good as me investigating my emotions from my life and from my work to see what is in alignment and what is not. And this can give you really important insights into, because like, guys, if you're showing up and you're doing marketing, so let's bring it back to marketing for a second. You're going to show up and tell yourself that you just have to post on social media every day, and you don't believe that. You don't really believe that you should have to post on social media today to have a successful business, but you're doing that because someone else, like seriously, a lot of other people probably told you to do that. To just take a note today, you don't have to do that. Please don't do that. But no, you don't have to post every day. You will show up to do that task because it's a task to do, not because you intentionally chose that task. So taking it back and to be like, okay, so I don't believe I have to post on social media every day. I do believe I want to post on social media. Okay, now I'm in the zone of me being creative and thinking about what's a way for me to show up on social media that feels easy for me. It should feel easy, because if you're showing up anywhere in terms of marketing, and this is equally relevant in sales, if you're showing up and doing any sales or marketing activity and it feels hard, you should ask yourself why you're doing it. If the reason you're doing it is because someone else said that you should, that's not a good reason.
I find that that's so true. Even as an entrepreneur, I stopped doing websites because I do love design. I love how pretty a finish, like I like the makeover process and all of it. And every time I'd get an email from a client, no matter how reasonable it was, I would just be like, ugh. And like, I got to the point where I was like, wait a minute. This is my business. No one is making me feel this way except me. Hold on a minute. Like, I am not in my zone of genius.
It happens to a lot of entrepreneurs because, especially if you have a background, I don't know. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. So I know there's some people who are like entrepreneurial from the time they're very young. I'm not that, so I can't speak from that perspective. I didn't expect that. I went to business school. I thought I was going to be corporate my entire life, right? Like, and then it just didn't end up being aligned with me. And so I moved on. But so many people who have made that transition from corporate to running your own business, we just don't have that practice of stopping to even think about that, right? Like,
right.
I actually kind of, like, I like websites. I'm good at making websites. Like, I'm decently good, but I just, like, really don't care. I just, like, really don't care. And it's not... There are lots of people who do care. So the people who need that can still get the help. Because I think a lot of people feel that too. They're like, well, these people need help. But yeah, there's like thousands of other people doing websites who can help.
All I had to do was find one person that I could confidently refer, and it was my ticket out. So, Tracy, how do people find out more about you?
People can following me on LinkedIn is the best way to find out more about me.
We'll link to you in the bottom of this too. So.
Yes, you can just Tracy Borreson. You can find me. I have a LinkedIn Live series that I just started called Permission to Do You at Work. So it really is all about trying to break down, just having conversations to break down these boundaries about what we think it is. And this is why I love participating in conversations like this too. It's about doing it differently, right? And everybody has a way of doing it that can work. If there was one way that you had to market to sell things, there wouldn't be all the options of different ways to market things, right? There's different things that work for different people. And so it's about finding the things that fit you and doing those things, showing up as your authentic self as often as possible. So I would love for you guys to check me out on LinkedIn. I also talk often on there about the Your Business Peeps community, which really is one of the best places where if you want to be in this conversation and you're at that beginning of your just discovering journey, then it really is a great place to start growing your personal brand.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tracy. We'll talk to you soon.
Kathleen.